Hey, what's going on, everybody? Frank Berry here with the Modern Church Leader, coming to you live again on Tuesday. And I'm actually here with two amazing guests. Super excited about today's conversation. Welcome, Tim and Justin.
Thanks for having us, Frank.
We're glad to be here.
Yes. And, it's a good Tuesday morning. We're all coming from different locations, and we love technology. So, Tim, you're out in Detroit, it sounds like. Or you're from
Detroit. That's my home base. Is just out a suburb of Detroit, Roseville, Michigan.
Yeah, I love that. And Justin, where are you coming to us from?
I am coming to you from Houston, Texas.
Love it, love it. We were talking football before this, but we'll save the football talk for later. So it's not
from Houston and from Michigan. There's not a whole lot to talk about. Just saying.
I mean, we got Michigan, Houston, and we got San Diego over here, who no longer has a football team. So it's
that's right.
All sad news right now. But guys, it's great.
But it was the Chargers, so you might be better off.
Yeah. It's great to have you guys on. We're here to talk a little bit about kind of church marketing and how church marketing can help churches make disciples, connect with their community, and those kind of things. But before we kind of get into it, Tim, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at your church, and a little bit about your church, and just help the audience know a little bit about you.
All right, great. I've pastored church plants, been on church plant staffs, and then before Crosswaves, I was on staff on one of the 100 largest churches in America, and a great experience. Learned a lot. It was a great experience. However, the problem is that I just felt like we weren't doing discipleship well, and we were doing great at getting crowds, but we weren't doing discipleship well.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got together with a couple of other families and started thinking about what can we do to truly not do church better, but to do discipleship better, what would that look like? And so then we started thinking about, I'm a big believer in good doctrine, good teaching. And yet I just feel like the better teacher you are, you're just trying to get a crowd. And so how could we keep groups small and yet have good teaching? And so that's when we came in with technology, using the internet, do the teaching through, so it would come into people's large screens, TVs. Like right now, you can watch a Crosswave service on a Roku or an Apple TV.
Yeah.
But what we found was, by removing the pastor or removing me from the room, then the person became the disciple maker. It wasn't the pastor. And what we do in the American church is we invite people to church and do a holy handoff. And I explain it like this. I say, hey, you ever, if you had open heart surgery and you had a nurse in your room, and she for 40 years has been helping people recuperate from open heart surgery, and she's telling you what to do. She knows what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then some guy just out of college who's a doctor walks in, you start looking at him. And as long as the pastor's in the room, we say everybody should be a disciple maker. But as long as the pastor's in the room, everybody's looking at the pastor to be disciple maker. And then you go scripturally, you look at John the Baptist. He's sitting there and Jesus walks by and he goes, there's the Lamb of God. Two of his guys walk away. They go follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer discipling them. And then we wonder why the disciples never preached in front of Jesus until Jesus left. And so until you get the pastor out of the room, that's when the other people become disciple makers. And so we built a ministry on how could we use technology and give good teaching, Bible teaching, like you would get in a traditional church. And we tell people this: traditional church typically has better Bible teaching because those are the people that went to college, seminary, and got trained. And
right.
The reason they work in the traditional church is because they can get paid. They deserve to make an income from their education. And then we add the best of internet churches by flexibility. And then we add the best of a house church because we always have a meal and we always do it in a small group setting.
Mm-hmm.
So we think we've taken the best of the traditional, the house church, and the internet and put it together so that's how we do discipleship, always in small groups. And then when we started studying the Jesus and the New Testament church, we came up with 3 core values that we live by. And we believe that discipleship happens best in the context of small groups. We believe that ministry happens best in the context of teams. And we believe that resources should go to people, not places. And so we don't have, it's kind of fun that we don't have the issues that a lot of churches have because we don't own anything. There's nothing to fight over. We own a couple of computers, a couple of cameras. There's nothing to fight over because we don't own anything.
Yeah. So Tim, you founded and you kind of planted, in air quotes, the church, and it started as one house church, if you will. And now it's 25 or so. And you've got 25 groups meeting around the city, maybe even outside of the city. I don't know. It could be all over the place, I guess.
We're in different states.
Okay. In different states. And then you're teaching digitally, whether it's live or recorded, and then all the small groups or the house churches can watch that content, have a discussion, have a meal, meet the needs of their community, and make disciples. That's really, really cool. Such a cool model, and great to have you today. Justin, why don't you jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself? And I mean, your last name is Mr. Church Marketer on this show.
Yeah, there you go. No, I was just gonna sit back and just, hey, I'll just be a watcher today. I'll just be a listener. It's a tough act. I mean, Pastor Tim, we'll get into this later if you care, but Pastor Tim's a professional comedian, and so now he gets to hear it from me here now. Man, what a tough act to follow. Goodness gracious. I'm Justin. I'm the part-time communications director for Crosswaves. So Pastor Tim's my boss, and super chill to be with, and exciting to join up with Crosswaves. I actually found Tim at prospecting for clients, and I was like, wow, never mind. This is a really cool church. And then my family moved, and the way that we focus on more of a small church as a family, and that's how we prefer to be ministered to and minister through. We just didn't really have a church around here that fit kind of what we wanted to, how we wanted to serve and what we believe, and match exactly with how small groups has impacted our lives in the past. And so when we heard the Crosswaves model, we were like, all right, like it's one thing to work for you, but also maybe it's God saying we need to plant a hotspot here. Right. And so it was right in the middle of the pandemic. So, we're still growing our group, but it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, my full-time day job / business partnership is Mr. Church Marketer. Joined up, combined forces with Rock Davis at the end of last year. We do printing, websites, logo designs, just about anything to get your church in front of more people and get you Sunday ready. And so it's been really great to work alongside Tim, and then also serve churches across the nation, just helping them figure out the pandemic and keep going, but also bring people in now that the world is kind of tired of being alone and figuring it out alone. And what does it mean to return back to community, and how do we get people excited when that community is church? That's what I do, and that's what I love.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It feels like we're rounding the corner with vaccines, and people are eager to get back, and churches are opening up more and more, and limited capacity. I mean, I guess it's different when you're in the house church meeting in homes and that kind of thing. Like it's just a different dynamic depending on the house church, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But let's jump in. The title today is How the Right Marketing Can Enhance Discipleship. Talk to me a little bit about like the word marketing. And I'd love to hear both of your perspectives on this. Like, is marketing in the church frowned upon or misunderstood? Because when you think marketing and you think church, I think for most pastors, church leaders, like those two don't necessarily go hand in hand. Like most pastors aren't thinking like how to be a great marketer. They're thinking about how to be a great pastor, how to take care of people, how to make disciples, right? All those kind of things, which is not necessarily marketing. So I'd love to hear your take. Is marketing frowned upon? Why do you think that's the case? And how should we flip it? How should churches be thinking about it?
if you imagine how some people have a bad taste in their mouth based on previous church experience via the pastor, church leadership, or other people in the church, that's why a lot of churches have a negative experience with marketing, is because when they think of marketing, they think of the sleazy salesman who puts his foot in the door and you can't get rid of him, or the guy that's calling and bothering the receptionist every day. That's terrible. That's not even marketing. That's just terrible salesmanship. Marketing, really, the way that I like to describe it, is really just communication and inspiration. That's all marketing is. So if that's what marketing is, then yeah, the church needs to be communicating what God is doing and who God is, and then inspiring people to take part in that. Now, churches have done a nice sneaky thing, and we've changed the word marketing to communications. And that's kind of the quote unquote PC term. You might also hear promotions. How do we promote this event? You really just want to market it. You really want to just market it. So marketing 100%, as far as the church is concerned, it's really just communicating who God is, what God's doing, and the stories of your church, and inspiring people to take action, right? If you don't have inspiration with communication, you just have information. That's why a lot of churches come to us, is because they've nailed down the information part, but no one's taking action because we're not calling them to action and we're not inspiring them to action. It's what separates a seminary lecture from a sermon. A seminary lecture is just academic. It's the same information, but there's obviously no altar call at the end of a seminary lecture. There will be at the end of a sermon, if you're old school like I am, because you're inspiring people to take action, to make a commitment. And that's all marketing is you're communicating what's happening at your church. And ideally, it's not all events. Your marketing is not just promoting events. In fact, 4 out of 5 of your marketing efforts should just be inspiration driven, encouragement, getting people to talk, getting people to invest, getting people to pay attention, getting people to learn more about you. And then you inspire them to take whatever action you want them to get involved with your church. That's all marketing is. And when it comes to discipleship, which we can get into later more in depth, marketing and discipleship go hand in hand, because you're discipling, your people are discipling, and there is real life change. There is life change happening as a result. People are being impacted. The kingdom is growing. How is someone across town, even in a small town, going to know about that? You need to tell them, share their stories, share their testimonies, not only salvation testimonies, but benevolence opportunities, life change stories, how you helped someone, how you served someone, how you were there for someone, how someone made a decision because of something that you did as a result of your discipleship process. When you communicate that and inspire them, they will then come in and join the effort. So that's all marketing is: communication and inspiration.
Yeah, love that. And Pastor Tim, like you're in the pastor shoes. What's been your experience with the topic of marketing? As a church leader, as a pastor, and even planting a church, has it been something that's top of mind? Have you thought about it? Is it natural for you to think that way, or are you learning to get better in that category?
Well, it's natural for me to think that way. The problem is, for me at my age, is just keeping up with the speed. It just seems like everything's changing constantly. What's hot today, TikTok was not available 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to think, okay, I'm finally mastering this. And then TikTok comes out. I'm like, what in the world is TikTok?
And then Clubhouse comes out 3 months ago, and you got to figure that one out.
Yeah. So it's just constantly, all right, now what do I do? And for me, it's just the speed of having to adapt that is difficult. I think also for most pastors, marketing to them is really just advertising their times of their services, come and join us, instead of looking at marketing as an opportunity to equip. How are we teaching? One of the things we're finding out now is church attendance is not as strong as it was, 20, 30 years ago. And so if you have a good attender that only comes to your church two Sundays a month, you're only impacting them 26 times a year. And so, 26 messages a year, how's that affecting somebody? And so understanding marketing, and as Justin said, communication, how can we communicate on a regular basis actual biblical truths that help us follow the Lord better?
Which I guess in the context of church, like that kind of is church for most church leaders in a way, right? Like people come on a Sunday, they're going to hear a message. Hopefully in most churches, it's about Jesus and it's about the good news and all, right? It's like, it's meant to, that's like almost a given. Like if you're doing church, like, especially if you're a pastor, teaching pastor, or the founding pastor, the only pastor at the church, like you're going to teach. So that's kind of happening. I don't even know if pastors think about that as marketing. That's the good news. That's me doing what God says. We need to get the Bible in people's hearts. Yep. Let Jesus change us. I think when I think marketing for churches, I think more about all the elements, like the branding and how you look in the community and the impact you're making and how you're reaching people online and via social media and on your website and all these other areas that are not just like what I teach on Sunday or maybe what I do in the building or in house churches, but it's not that experience. It's kind of the rest. Though I agree. Like I do think that experience is part of it. It just feels like that's kind of the part that churches, whether they're good at it or not, that is part of the DNA. Every church knows how to put a service on and preach the message and kind of take the offering and like have the ushers and all the different kind of things. So like, I guess I'm kind of sharing all that to say, do you guys think about the other forms of marketing, like websites and digital and how you look in the community and events that you might put on to reach people? And I don't know, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so I was just gonna let's define some terms here, because there's marketing could mean different things to different people. I've been accused of being a direct response marketer, which means I'm gonna ask you for something, right?
Fully accused.
So we could typically, and the way that you're describing it is kind of a newer definition of the holistic marketing, which is you have advertising, which is more of what I do, direct response, meaning we're going to ask you to do something. We're going to promote this for you to take action. Then there's marketing, which can constitute branding, PR, community relations, and all that good stuff, which is where it's the indirect stuff. What do you feel when you walk into something? What is the visual representation? How are you identified? What's your mark? What's your colors? What's your philosophy? What's your personality? All that good stuff, all that stuff that's not a direct ask can also, if you're going to separate it into that, you could even do branding as a tertiary break off from that. So marketing is the overall feel and personality and PR, public relations. And then branding is like your visual representation of that. And then of course, advertising is the direct response. So marketing could like totally just do, like we've done a good job of kind of separating that, and we can go with those definitions. So yeah, all of that needs to play a piece. It really does require a holistic approach. And a lot of people don't like that word, but that's the best way I know how to describe it. It's a puzzle. You can put a puzzle 90% together, and depending on the puzzle, you're still thinking, what is this, man? I see a bunch of blue. Is this sky? Is it a boat? Is it a boat in the sky? Then you put more pieces together and you actually see, oh, okay, it's a 1950s refrigerator. That's why it's so blue. You could put together half the puzzle and you get the picture and you're like, I know what that is.
Yeah, the puzzle in the sky is just an odd puzzle. Anyway.
Yeah. So you have no idea until you put all the pieces together. Which that's what all the pieces do. Your website, your social media, your visual branding, your curb appeal, your building. Once you walk in there, the personality of your brand, the physical touches, the brochure, the signage, all that plays a piece into identifying, that's what separates this church from all the other ones, because all the other ones just have a few pieces of the puzzle. But when you wrap yourself around your identity around all these touches of marketing, the branding, the logo, the website, the social media, the copy, the ads that you're running, the signage, and you wrap yourself around those colors and those verbiage, everything's going to be discipleship and growth oriented. And people say, well, this church is really about growing. It's not about all those other churches that just want you to preach and give money. Like, you wrap yourself around this identity of growth and excitement. That's what's going to happen, because you've put all those puzzle pieces in front of people and said, this is what we are, instead of only giving them a few pieces and saying, guess what we are. So that's what really kind of sounds what we're talking about is all the different puzzle pieces. They all fit together to form the piece of the puzzle that is your church. And if churches don't do all those puzzle pieces, if they only do 2 or 3, then people are just going to make assumptions, and they may not assume correctly about who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tim, are you going to jump in?
This is why we have Justin. Okay. Us guys, and this is the same thing for doctors, vets, dentists. You go to school and you get all your degrees and whatever you have.
Right.
It's all about Bible. We're taught all about how to do a sermon, how to study the scriptures, how to look into the languages. That's what we're taught. And if you're fortunate to even get a class on branding or marketing, most colleges don't even do that well. They don't even have a person that knows how to teach that well. And then the problem that I see that we have in today's world is choices. I mean, in my growing up, we were fortunate in Detroit because not only did we get 3 stations on TV, but we could get the Canadian station across the river in Windsor, Canada. So we got 4 choices when most of the country got 3. And so nowadays, when you look at the old shows and how many viewers they had, it was amazing to now cable shows get, you might have got 50 million viewers when I was a kid on a show, and now you get 1 million and they're excited. It's because we have so many choices. Right. And I'm not talking about church choices. I'm just talking about life choices.
Yeah. There's a lot
to get your message across and what you're there for and who you are. You need people that come in and help us tell what we're doing. They say right now that less than 20% of America goes to church. And if all the traditional churches did well, we could reach 40% of America. 60% of America has no clue what we even do on a Sunday morning in church. They've never been to a church. They don't even know what church is for. And so we need to be able to communicate that message better. And that's, from my perspective, is what marketing does, is help people get people's attention and go, hey, you really need this over here. And here's why you need to come to us and let us help you find a right relationship with God.
Right.
And that's about as deep as I get into marketing. And I go, okay, Justin, what do we do next?
Take it from there.
Take it from there. Well, a
lot of times I fall into that. I'm a professional. Okay. And let me tell you how many times I've asked Pastor Tim questions. Like, hey, what time? Like I asked him yesterday. I was like, hey, do you want to do this live or do you want to do it canned? And he was like, I don't know. You tell me. I fall into that trap too. Live. Like, okay, Pastor Tim, you just need to Bible it up and shepherd. Okay, I gotta take care of the rest.
Here's my question, because I love you kind of led it down a good path, Tim. I find that a lot of churches, like, and I don't know how many people are a part of, the 20 or 30 house church small group gatherings that you guys have, but certainly you're not, you came from the top 100 mega church size, these enormous churches that have tons of resources. Most churches aren't that. Most churches are 100 people or less, maybe 150 people or less. And they don't have the staff or the resources, or maybe even the thought that, oh, I should be thinking about marketing. But somehow, Tim, you kind of had the thought, or you had a connection, and now you've got Justin in this part-time marketing and communications role at a church that traditionally wouldn't have a marketing person on staff. So how'd you make that leap? Like, how did you as a pastor get to the point where, like, yeah, this is important, even in a church of my size, to have somebody who's thinking about our brand, our marketing, our messaging, how we connect with the community, all those kind of things?
Well, it doesn't matter what size of church you're at. You're always aware of money. When you're a pastor, and take out the spirituality of it, when you're a pastor, you're running a business. And every time a family leaves and their money goes with them, you sit and think, if I lose a couple of more families, can I keep going in a church under 100? Can I keep paying the bills? And in our culture right now, there are so many bivocational pastors that started full time and they ended up being bivocational because the church has shrunk or expenses have gone up and they just can't they can't pay their insurance or whatever. And so there's a real issue right now. In fact, I just read a denomination that has a small denomination, and I think I read they have 150 churches in this very small denomination looking for pastors, and they can't find them. They just cannot. There's just not enough people out there that could step in, that are what they're wanting, trained, and et cetera. And so money is always an issue. And then when you're with a big church, like I was, and you see all these specialists, all these people that were actually working in the secular world, and just wanted to work in the sacred world, and they took jobs, and you're just so thankful for them. So I've seen, from knowing how you count, as they say, you count nickels and noses, and then you're in a big church and you see all the specialists, and you go, wow. And then now I'm on my own. I knew I couldn't afford it when I was in the small church. You're always begging for help, but you just get to a point when you go, all right. Now for me, I'm a bivocational pastor. As Justin mentioned earlier, I'm a professional stand-up comedian. I do things to make money so I can not have to take as much money from the church,
right?
So we can afford people like Justin, who can give us some clarity and some issues that we just wouldn't be able to figure out on our own.
Right. Yeah.
So you just got to make sacrifices, but every pastor knows where they're failing. Every pastor, you go to a conference, every conference a typical pastor goes to, they go home depressed. They're going, man, we're failing here, we're failing there. We all know where we're missing the boat. The problem is we just don't know how to get out of it, or we don't have the funding to find the right person to get out of it. And so, we're thankful to have a marketer on staff, but man, most of my pastor friends are really struggling during COVID. This has been very difficult for them. Many of them weren't set up with a company like yours, so they weren't even taking online giving in the beginning. So now they're not, they went through such a stretch without taking offerings. It's just a problem. And so we've been fortunate. We've actually grown through COVID, and we were COVID ready before we knew COVID was going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, being kind of a, in air quotes, to use more of the secular, like you were a remote church, like, everything was in house churches, and it was kind of decentralized, and people could meet in homes and do smaller gatherings, maybe meeting outside. And so you could kind of adapt versus like, oh, we all meet in the building and now you can't do that. What now? So, you're in an interesting position. Justin, when you work with a church, whether it's, with Pastor Tim, or I know you work with other churches, like, I guess when you're coming in to help them with marketing and it's the early days, what's 2 or 3 of the main things that you focus on and help them with at the beginning?
I'll give you one thing that we work with. If you can't answer this one thing, we can't help you. No one can help you. It's, what are your goals? What do you want to have happen in the next 6 months? And I choose 6 months because that's close enough that we can really focus on that and measure some results that we want to get to. But it's far enough to realize that it is something lofty. You're not going to get 50 new visitors or guests next week. We can definitely see that happen in 6 months. You're not going to launch a church next week, but you can launch or plant a church and launch in 6 months. So first things first that we always start with is, what do you want to see happen? God's put a vision on your heart. He's called you to plant a church, or he's called you to revitalize your existing church, and something needs to happen. And that's why you've come to see me or just gone to seek external help, whether you need to plant a counseling ministry or plant a church or just revitalize how you're handling students and kids, whatever it may be. You got to know where you're going. You got to have that end goal. And then everything you do needs to get you to that end goal, or the end zone, the goalpost in the end zone. If it doesn't, then you're wasting your money, you're wasting your resources, and I would dare say you're not being a good steward. So you have to have a benchmark of what you want to go to, and you could do a whole SMART goals and all that good stuff. You have to know where you want to go. So that's where I always start. And DeMarco's here in the chat. I'm very glad DeMarco's. I've consulted with him a couple times. He's planting a church. Very excited to have DeMarco here. And DeMarco will tell you in the comments. He'll say, he'll tell you the first thing that I ask him is, what do you want to see happen? And I'll tell you right now, he wants to have 25 on launch, 50 active participants, and 100 attending his launch, his church launch. Okay. And everything we do, when he comes to me and he says, Justin, I want this. And I say, you don't want that, because that's not going to get you 25 core members, 50 actively involved in serving, and 100 at launch. That's just going to eat up your money and time. You know, I flat out didn't sell DeMarco something because it wasn't going to help him. He had other priorities, and this product that we'd like for it to be a silver bullet wasn't going to help him get to that goal. Instead, we're going to shift to, this is what you need to get people excited, to get people on board, to get them signing up, to get them ministering, to get them remembering you, and get them excited for your launch day. That's what it all has to come down to. So that could look different, unfortunately, for every church. And this is where my job gets really hard, is the fact that there is no one size fits all thing. There is no correct way to do things. There is a best practice. That's why it's called a best practice. Like, we practiced it enough that it works most of the time. But even Michael Jordan and LeBron miss a few free throws every once in a while. They shoot a perfect free throw, but they're going to miss it every once in a while. That's just how it is. And so there can be a best practice, but God has equipped you with unique gifts to uniquely serve a unique group of people. That's what you got to figure out what that is. Okay. One church cannot serve everyone. If that was the case, every city should just have one church and everyone should go work for that one church. But instead, God calls us to go out, plant, or whatever that's going to look like, hotspots like we do, or churches like a traditional church planner would, figure out who's not being reached, and then figure out how you're going to reach them. Because if you're going to do what everyone else did, why are you planting a church? I think I told DeMarco that exactly. I think I said, you're talking about doing something that other churches in your area are doing, and it's not reaching these people you're called to reach. So why are you going to try to do it? So you got to figure out, what is your goal? Who do you want to reach? How do you want to reach them? And then figure out what's going to communicate with them, because it might look totally different. It just might. And so that's the starting point. And then from there, you can look at what has worked in the past for these people. Who else is reaching these people? Who else is doing it with our resources? Where have our people been resourced to be able to have an impact and serve others? That's the real starting point. So you have to start, not what kind of website should I get? What should I post on social media? How many shirts do I need to order? It's, what kind of website does these people I want to reach? What kind of website? What do they want to see on the website? What do they want to see on social media? What events are they already going to? So instead of going to another church conference, I'm going to go to the farmer's market where all the moms are going, because we have a kids ministry that we can minister to their kids, and we can support them with Mother's Day out, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to go there and not just open another mommy book club. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about defining your goals and then what's going to get you to those goals.
Yeah. I think Justin is right on there. For us, it was, we want to just do discipleship. We want to know, what would that look like? In Michigan, I work with church planters, and, you ask them, why should somebody come to your church? And they look at us and go, we're just going to love people. And it's like, wow, no church has ever thought of that one before. We're going to teach the Bible. Wow, hadn't heard that one either. And so I'm just amazed at what I feel like a lot of us are trying to do, is to do church better, instead of coming back and going, okay, here's what our ministry is, and here's who we're trying to reach. Because, like, for instance, you're starting a church, a guy's starting a church in a town, and there's 75 other churches in that town. And I go, when is your church going to meet? He goes, 11 o'clock on Sunday. And I go, just like the other 75 churches in that town. Why wouldn't you go to a time and go after people that work on Sunday? Why are we always just copying everybody else and then trying to do it better than everybody else, instead of figuring out, how has God wired me? Where are we going? Who are we trying to reach? Those kind of questions will develop our ministry so much differently than what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, and I think what you guys are saying kind of go hand in hand, like thinking about your goals, thinking about, what you bring to the table, Tim, like you said, how you're wired as a church leader, and what does this community need, and how can I help meet that need of the community where I'm at? And like, it's just good stuff, right? To think through all of that.
It lines up perfectly with how Tithely came started. I believe it's Dean, right? The founder. He told a story about how he went to a coffee shop and he paid with his phone. And he said, why can't I do this on my phone at church? And he started Tithely. Now, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but instead of saying, well, how can I get Square into church? Or how can I set up with more churches with Stripe accounts? He said, no, churches are unique. We have budget items. They're nonprofits. Now they need apps, and now they need messaging. And instead of saying, well, just go to these people, they do okay. Instead, Tithely saying, no, we can do it better for churches. Yeah. And so don't copy what other people are doing. You have to focus on what your church does best. And again, that goes back to my definition of marketing, which is communication and inspiration. What are you doing that you can communicate to others and inspire them to join the cause, not just to join your church to boost your numbers and have more butts in seats, but to really get them to hear the gospel, to hear the good news that potentially they've heard it 10 dozen times before, but the way that you present it, the way that your church loves on them in the name of Jesus is going to break down the wall, or God softened their heart at that time for you to present them with that. I mean, that's a whole different thing. It's the whole thing you see, go and make disciples slapped on every church bus. Our mission is to make disciples, or go grow show. I don't know, whatever it is. You see that all the time, but it just doesn't connect. But when I tell people, hey, I'm out of town with my family, and I say, hey, let's watch church right now. And they're like, oh, what's it going to be? It's going to be we're going to awkwardly sit and watch worship songs that don't sound that good on the live stream. And then we're going to watch a preacher that never looks at the camera. No, we watch Pastor Tim, and we start off with a deep dive that's like curiosity driven. And then we do worship music, and then we have a Bible talk. We don't have a sermon. We have a Bible talk, and Pastor Tim uses simple words, and then we have discussion, and then we end with a joke. Pastor Tim always ends the service with a joke because we all want to end smiling.
Get ready. We might have to end the show with a joke.
There you go. Get one ready. And when we get done, people are like, I've walked them through. Tim, you have a fancy word for it. I moderate them. I don't know what's the word, Tim, for discussion questions. Facilitate. I don't like that word, but that's just me. I facilitate discussion. And we end up taking these 5 questions, and unlike a typical Sunday school class where it's like, all right, what's the answer? Jesus. Okay, great. All right, what's the answer? John. It's actual discussions like, man, have you ever felt like all Christians are unhappy? Like, where does that come from? Like, why are we walking around like this? And we actually facilitate discussions of, man, how much legalism and just downright frustration we get when we have the most joyous message, and we end up spending 20 minutes talking about this one question, and I get to disciple our group, my own family, and say, this is not what we're called to live. We've totally confused what Christianity is. And at the end of it, we always say, we want to go serve and study and share the faith. And I say, like, this is kind of how we do discipleship. And the other group members are like, I've never experienced discipleship like this before. It's always been something people say. It's always been another class you take at church. And it's just something unique. It's something different. And like Tim will say, like, there's nothing that we believe is inherently evil with the way church is doing. We just believe for our body of believers, this is how we're called to serve and disciple and share our faith. Yeah. And so that's what it is. That's what the marketing is. When we do for our church, it's communicating how we do discipleship and inspiring others to join in. We got someone in the last couple of weeks that's watching from Tennessee that, never been to a group, connected with a local church, but she enjoys watching. And, we're praying for her because, things may not work out with her local church, but she's watching us. So there may be an avenue for us to invite her into the fold. And so she can then disciple others. I mean, there's a whole thing here that basically comes down to, this is Crosswaves' way of marketing what we're doing, which is telling others that we have a unique service, a unique way of doing church, We go a little bit against the grain in the way we handle our monies and finances, and that we don't have a building. And that does rubs people the wrong way. But guess what? They're not for Crosswaves. They are for another local church, another body. They are a body part on another body that we don't need to take away. We don't need to amputate them and put them in our body. They serve best with a local church. So we're going to reach the people that really want more than just checking a list. And they feel called to do more. They just don't know how. That's what Tim's going to do. He's going to equip them. And I'm going to tell them about it.
I love that. Let's close with a quick thing. What are some of the biggest mistakes you guys have seen churches make when it comes to marketing and communications? Just some big mistakes, big fails over the years that you've run across.
The biggest thing, because goals are so important to me, the biggest thing is doing something just because you feel like you have to do it. And you have no measure of success against that. Mm-hmm. So for example, something that always irks me, especially now that I work with Mr. Church Marketer, one of our biggest things we love to do with churches and help churches problem solve is guest gifts. So a lot of times, churches come to us, hey, we need a good Mother's Day gift. We need a good Father's Day gift. We need a new guest gift. And I say, what is your guest gift right now? And they say, oh, we do a car sticker that has our church name on it and a brochure or something like that, or maybe a coffee mug, which coffee mugs are great. Don't get me wrong. I got a nice coffee mug right here.
They're awesome.
But here's the thing. First of all, when's the last time you went to a business for the first time and you put their car decal on your car? Right. You don't do that. That's for the hardcore fans. Second of all, this mug, it's only really good for hot beverages. The one like you have, Frank, it's good for hot and cold. I saw it in the pre-show. Yeah, the tumbler. So that's a better gift, and it's automatically more useful.
Tim, the tumbler's coming your way, or the Yeti, whatever this is called.
There you go. Yeah. And so, and then, typically they say like, oh, we give them a devotional. Like no new believer is going to read, or even pre-new believer, dead in spirit is going to read a devotional. Like you're giving them the wrong gifts. Give them something that's going to be memorable, that let them know that you plan for them. Father's Day, best gifts that always go over well, personalized pocket knives. Just going to put that out there. Think of it what you will. I tell you what, dads are going to come back when you give them a pocket knife. It's just what it is. They're going to use it all the time. They're going to show their buddies, oh, yeah, I got my knife and I got it from, where'd you get that knife, John? It's a good knife. Oh, I got it from this church. Oh, wow. They actually seem to get you, and maybe they'll get me too. You know what I'm saying?
Knives and bacon.
There you go. And then having a website. Everyone needs a website. So they go with the cheapest one. And guess what? They call me a year later because they didn't get it right the first time. They don't know what the website's supposed to do. They don't tell people what to do on the website. They write the same thing as every other church. And they just look like everyone else, so no one takes action. They post on social media, they post sermon graphics and announcement graphics. People don't connect with people. People connect with people, not pictures. Your man, Brandon Swain, told me that. And so, it's doing all the things because you think you should, without thinking, why are we doing them? And how do they get it? How do we do this to fulfill our mission, our vision of our church that God's given us? How do we use those tools to get us ahead? Sometimes you may not even need some of these tools, but you may need others. So that's the number one mistake, is just doing things because others do it, and not knowing why, and not doing it within your own mission and goals. That's the number one mistake. You got to know why you're doing it, and you got to know how it's going to help you get to where you want to go, specifically you as a unique church in the next 6 months to 2 years.
Yeah, love that. Pastor Tim, big mistakes, epic fails.
I would say a lot of times we do our marketing that to get people to come to us, versus trying to explain to people or help people do something. Instead of marketing inwardly, market outwardly. How to help. We want to help you in some area of need in your life. And it could be a ministry of, right now, 40% of people in your town are single or single parents. And so if you did a night a week where you would have where you can go out and do shopping and leave your kid with us, that kind of marketing where I'm helping a family in town with a problem that they might not have babysitters or can afford. Epic fail. One of my best pastor friends did an Easter egg where you drop them from a helicopter.
Yes, and, I've heard of this.
He advertised very well, But there was another church on the other side of Detroit area that advertised, we're doing the same thing, but they did, if I got the story right, their link wasn't working. So when people would get on the internet, because they heard it on the radio from this other church, they were being sent to his church.
They
People
went to the one that
drove
worked.
like 45 minutes to get to his helicopter Easter egg drop on a football field.
Yeah.
There were so many people, they ran out of parking 30 minutes before. People started parking in the cemetery across the street, parking on graves, which made the cemetery incredibly upset.
Yeah.
There were so many kids there that their kids either walked away with one egg or no eggs. And it was an epic fail. There were so many people. He didn't answer his phone for a week because all he got was calls to the church yelling that we came 45 minutes and my kid didn't even get no candy whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest Easter egg hunt that failed that I've ever heard of.
I mean, it sounds like both churches failed. The one church failed because they didn't use the right link and people couldn't find them. The other church failed because they didn't realize that everyone's coming to theirs and they needed to plan for that.
And when he tells the story, his eyes water up because it was such a bad experience. And how many of us have ever had so many people show up for something and it turned out to make it fail?
Right.
You know?
Right. Totally. Well, Justin left and came back. So
my power went out.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you believe it?
Crazy. Well, just in time, and you guys have been fantastic. Ending on some epic fails. I love just what both of you have said about, know what you're like, have your goal, know what you're driving towards, and just do the things that are going to help you move down the path towards that goal over the next 6 or 12 months. And don't try to be like every other church on the planet. I feel like packaging it all up in that kind of short little takeaway can help a lot of churches. Like, think about what's unique to you, how you can serve your community, do the things that are going to get you down that path, and don't try to mimic Elevation or one of these large churches, even though they're awesome and do amazing things. Not everybody is Elevation. Yeah. So where should guys go to find y'all? Like, should they check out the church website, the marketing website? Like, give folks some places to go check you guys out.
Yeah, so you can find us crosswaveschurch.com. That's waves with a Z, with a V and an S, crosswaveschurch.com. And Frank, I told you, I've been accused of being a direct response marketer. If you feel like this is something that you can get down with, if you're not connected with a local church, or if you feel God's calling you to do something more intimate, more at home, when you go to crosswaveschurch.com, scroll down a little bit, there's going to be a button that says Become a Certified Host. We do all our training online. Pastor Tim gives you a call whenever you need it to help you start your group. We started my group as just a family, just my family, just to see if that was for us. And if you feel like you're being called to do that, or you just want to know more, we're not a cult, okay? There's no cost to join. We're not going to ask you to do anything. You can watch the videos for free and see what we're all about. Yeah. And that's the best place to go, crosswaveschurch.com. Me personally, you can find me on social media. I hang out most on Twitter @JustinNava. I'm pretty much everywhere. Just search Justin Nava, look for this old mug, and you'll get connected with me and ask me questions. Find me in the DM. I live out of my inbox. I love it.
That's amazing. Well, Pastor Tim, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you jumping on and sharing from your journey. Love what you're up to. Love kind of I don't even know what to call it other than like house church model. I'm sure it's more than that, but love that. And Justin, great having you. Thanks for sharing all your marketing expertise with the crew. And thanks for everyone that joined. I mean, a bunch of people in the comments, a bunch of people joining live, and I know there'll be a lot of you that come on and watch the recording. So appreciate you guys. Justin, Tim, have a great week, and we'll catch everyone next week on Modern Church Leader.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Frank.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.